One time you do that, sometimes you do multi-angle, 5-angle valve jobs. I'll do like a 15 out here, and then a 30, then the 45 that the valve sits on, then the 58 in the middle, and then a 75. So you get a radius. You get a radius. I used to build mini sprint race motors, the little winged cars with the GSXR 750s and 1200 motors in them. 16 valves. I'd sit there and do 5-angle valve job, multi-angle valve jobs on every hole. I'd spend a half a day, and then, you know, when you port the head and do this work, you got a day's worth of work just with the head on the bench. This type of work it's very time consuming and tedious sometimes. All right, so we're gonna put these valve seals in here now. Just set them in there with these. Then I use my fat thumb. And they just push right on. They push right down over the look inside here. See, they just set. Just put them on top of the guide. Put your thumb in there, and they pop right on. This stuff's been sitting out in the dusty air for a few days, so I just spray them down. A little brake clean. These springs are the same front to rear, but some valves are progressively wound, and these ones aren't, so you can't mess them up. The ones that are progressively ground, you have to put the tighter coils to the bottom. You always do that on top of the valve stem with a hammer. Give it, because it'll seat the little wedged pieces in there. Because if they're not in there wedged properly, the first time the cam goes around, it could pop one right out. So you always want to give them a thump. I use this too, because if you put anything metal in there, the cotters stick to it like it's a little bit of magnetic. So this is not magnetic because it's a plastic straw, but I use it sometimes to move these little things around. So valve keepers, because these are the old valves, this is the new one. You can see the groove cut for the keepers is a different width. Use OEM keepers and bases, or Kibble White keepers and bases. It should say KZ900 need to change keepers, but it doesn't. So I'll call them up Monday. Get some coming. Okay, we're back on the scene here. We had a little setback a few days ago. I had to call Kibble White and get some different keepers for their valves. When I ordered their valves, it said in the footnote that you can use the stock OEM keepers, but it turned out I couldn't, so I had to get them, and we're all set now. I got the head all together. And what I do after I do a valve job before I put the head on the bike, I always adjust the shims while the head's off the bike. It's a lot easier. So I've already done it, but I'll just show you. You do one side at a time. set the cam in there and bolt it down and torque it down, and then you can rotate this sprocket with a big pair of channel locks just to rotate the cam, and you can adjust all your shims individually, and then do the intakes, and then you can put the head on the bike. And that's where we're at, because I already did it. I already adjusted the valves. I got them all set at 3/1000. Okay, it's all ready to go on. I still have a lame shoulder. I'm not that strong on that side. On there. We're just going to add the nuts, the head nuts now. After I speed wrench them down, I stop and I hand tighten them by hand. I just know how tight I want them. But I have to be careful not to over tighten these too, because you can pull the aluminum up out of the head and strip it. But I'm guessing 17, 18 foot-pounds. I got a torque wrench built in my wrist after years and years of doing this. All right, so that cam's in, the arrow's where it's supposed to be. I always hold down on the cam chain too, because it can lift up off the sprocket. It can lift up off the sprocket if you're not paying attention, then you got to start over. So I always keep a little pressure on it. Now, you can see how much slack is in this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back the intake cam up. So I back the intake cam up. That puts the slack in the back of the motor where the manual tensioner is. I had this backed off, but now I'm just going to turn it in by hand until it touches. Gotta get a smaller wrench. Alright, so how do you know when this is tight enough? Well, what you gotta do is put a wrench on the crankshaft over here, and you move the engine forward and back. And as long as everything's moving with your wrench at the same time, you got it. So see, right now it's a little loose, so my crankshaft is moving, but my cams aren't. So I just keep putting a little forward tension on the crank and turn this in. Now I know all the slack's out of it. Now we're moving together, the wrench and the cam, so that's where I'm gonna leave it. Because you don't want to over tighten it. And if it's too loose, it'll rattle, and if it's too tight, it'll take the bearings out of those little idle ones that were on the head surface. That's that. So all the shims are adjusted, all the valves are adjusted, and it's all back together. Now we're just gonna put the valve cover on it, gasket and the cover. On this Kawasaki, all the valve cover bolts are the same length, so you can't screw them up. Some bikes, they're different lengths, and you gotta pay attention where you're putting them. So I speed wrench them all down too with the wrench, and then I snug them up by hand just to get a good feel of them. Want just a little bit of free play. You want to make sure your return cable's got tension on it, otherwise the idle might hang up a little. That's why they put a push-pull cable on these. It helps pull the slides down. I tell you what can happen if you leave one of these nuts loose. And what vibration, the nut falls down, and you're cranking it, the nut falls between the linkage and the carburetor, and your throttle sticks. So you don't want that to happen. Make sure you snug these nuts up. Got something very special in this big box. You want to help me open it, Jackie? What's in this big box right here? What's in here? We have a replica OEM exhaust system in here. So it's brand new exhaust system. Get out of there, baby. And I just saw some new exhaust gaskets. Where'd they go? Right here. So I'll put these in the head and we'll start putting that new exhaust on. These have a flat side and a round side also, so I always stick the flat side into the head. A couple little dabs of grease. Becky, get out of there now. We don't want you wrecking anything. Come here, you little crazy bastard. He's in jail now. Ooh, I was wondering if it came with new exhaust collars. Thought I was gonna have to use them old dirty ones. Brand new, complete kit here. The emblems and stuff didn't come with the exhaust. That was extra stuff we ordered, but so don't get your hopes up. These are little exhaust connections in between the back. It comes with everything new, which is good. Okay, I'm just looking to see what else is in here, so I know. A couple new mirrors, OEM Kawasaki mirrors, clutch and brake lever. Looks like we got a cluster bracket, the instrument bracket. I believe these are probably for the exhaust. Okay, so I just finished putting the exhaust system on it. It took me about 45 minutes, but I didn't want to bore you guys with all the details on that. But I wanted to make sure that you wipe down it after you're done with a nice brand new exhaust system. You have to wipe your fingerprints and grease off it. You start it up, it'll burn itself into there, and it'll probably be there forever. So the exhaust is all on. Now all I want to do is change the oil. Before I start it up with the new piston and rings, I'm going to put some fresh oil and the oil filter on it. So as soon as I do that, we'll be back and I'll fire this thing up. See how she sounds. So all we need to do is add some gas to this thing and fire it up. Okay, so I'm bottle feeding it some 94 VP. Okay, here we go. Okay, it sounds really nice and quiet. See, we're leaking a little gas, so I'll have to address that. Alright, so this stage of the game is done. We have a lot of stuff going on this bike. You just saw the brand new exhaust being put on it. That box that you saw on the floor cost us $4,000 just for that box. It had the exhaust, the emblems. There's some body work that weren't in the box but was on the bill, like some new side covers, and I think we got a new gas tank and everything. So the reserve on this one when it's done is probably going to be pretty high because we're putting a ton of money in this thing, but it is a classic. It's worth doing it. So now it's got a fresh top end, a new exhaust, and wait till you see it when it's done. It's going to look like a brand new bike, so stay tuned and you'll check it out.